My name's Jerry. I've been a member here at FAB9 for a few months now, mostly using the CNC router. And I'm making electric trumpets out of timber, out of hardwood timber, and machining horns and stuff. I'll give you a little bit of background about how I got into that particular niche. So my background is in physics and software engineering, and I just did an undergrad at Melbourne Uni, and I never actually took it any further than that, because as soon as I graduated I decided I wanted to become a jazz trumpet player. So I went to the Victorian College of the Arts and tried to learn jazz trumpet. But needless to say, I was a woeful trumpet player, terrible. I tried really, really hard. I could never quite do it. And a lot of what frustrated me was physical problems with the embouchure, with like the muscles in the cheeks. And I just couldn't build enough muscle in the cheeks to play very well. And at the same time, I was always frustrated that I couldn't play the music I wanted to play. I love playing traditional jazz music, I love it, but I wanted to play in different kinds of bands, and I just couldn't on the instrument. So after many years of frustration, I was in the UK at the Glastonbury Festival, and I saw a band called the Sun Ra Orchestra, and they're a free jazz ensemble, American, a bunch of 70-year-olds in Egyptian costumes doing somersaults on stage and playing improvised jazz. I'm going to play you a video of the guy from that band. And I saw this guy, Marshall Allen, playing the electric trumpet on stage at this festival. That's the instrument there he's holding. I saw that and I was like, oh my god, I have to play this instrument. I really want it. So that was about 4 years ago. I saw that, and I got home after traveling. I was like, I have to buy one of these instruments. I looked it up, and it was built. It's an instrument built by a Canadian guy called Niall Steiner. I'm pretty sure he's Canadian. In the 70s. And I tried to buy one online, and they're just impossible to find. They're all antiques, and they cost about $5,000 US, and they won't ship them outside of the US. And there's maybe 2 or 3 that you can get. So it was very frustrating. I really wanted one of these instruments. So I tried to look at other options, and no one had created an electric trumpet like that after that, until in the mid-noughties, James Morrison, the Australian trumpet player, made one. And this is actually a MIDI trumpet, of all things. See if I can find a picture of it. Hang on a second. It was a MIDI trumpet. This is an old presentation being a while ago. It looks like that. And I love James Morrison. He's he brings jazz to people in Australia. He's a great purveyor of the art form. But all the attempts I could find to create electric trumpets just they just weren't very good. And a lot of them were kind of laughable. So I thought I'll just make one. And I got kind of obsessed with the idea. And I built one for my final year presentation at the Victorian College of the Arts. that looks kind of like this. I'm going to get it out now and show it to you. So this is the instrument. It's just 3D printed valves with a Raspberry Pi and a bunch of sensors. It senses how hard you're blowing, obviously. The spit comes out a little hole at the bottom here. And it senses how far the valves are pressed down using a magnetic Hall sensor. And then the key thing I wanted to achieve with this was creating an instrument that didn't have to be plugged into a MacBook to work, which unlike the Niall Steiner one, which you saw in the video with Marshall Allen just now, that had to be plugged into a big rack-mounted synthesizer. And the James Morrison one had to be plugged into a MacBook or a MIDI instrument bank to work, which is just doesn't. Like, you need to be able to pick up an instrument and play it, I think. So that's a big design goal I wanted to achieve here. So this has a synthesizer built in. It runs Linux, for those of you interested. And it can be turned on and just play. So what's happening? With a normal trumpet, you control your register through resonance in your lips and mouth cavity. Okay, this instrument can't see any of that. So instead, you control the resonance with this knob with your left hand, which is a lot easier, I can tell you. And that's the same design as the other two instruments that I showed you. So it has a range equal to the full range of human hearing. So that's lower than the amplifier can produce. And there you might be able to hear it a little bit. And then from there up, only dogs can hear it. And I've mostly been using it for free jazz and noise music with a drummer friend of mine, because it is quite basic in its construction. But at FAB9, what I'm trying to do now is produce an instrument that doesn't even actually require the amplifier. So out of wood, I'm making an enormous electric euphonium with a horn on it that produces its own sound. And calculations, back of the envelope calculations that I've done so far, are giving me a maximum volume from the instrument of a jet engine from about 10 feet away, about 130, 135 decibels. So I'm looking forward to finishing that project. I figure if I'm going to make an electric trumpet, it should be loud. Yeah. So maybe I'll just play a little bit more noise for you, and then if you have any questions, I'll be very happy to answer them. Any questions?
Do you find that there are limits to the sorts of sequences of notes you can play just because of having to use the knob?
There are definitely limits to my talent in operating the knob. I think there are, yeah. And what I'm trying to do is find a better interface. So that knob system that like electric trumpets have been using since the 70s, I think it is quite limited. Yeah. So I'm exploring different senses, different ways of interfacing with your hands and with the face to get more gestures from your body into the instrument. Yeah.
Very nice.
Trumpet is not a woodwind instrument; it's a brass instrument. Yeah, but what makes trumpet a brass instrument is using the lips as the reed of the instrument. So technically, this would not be a brass instrument because you're not doing that. Yeah, so it does not work using the same acoustic principles as a brass instrument. But it looks like one because it's got the valves. So it's trumpet by analogy only. Yeah.
Can you program it to have different, voice?
Different what? Sorry.
Different sounds. So yeah, right now it's very electronic and all that. Can you program it to also sound like, I don't know, like another instrument or?
So the question is, can I program it to use different sounds other than the sound you heard? So I deliberately avoided the approach of making it a MIDI instrument. So you can't plug it into a patch and get it to play piano, no. I thought a more robust, musically robust approach, and maybe a less gimmicky approach that I wanted to take was to take the analogy of an electric guitar, which only has one sound, right? But then if you add the world of guitar effects and guitar pedals, all of a sudden you've access to millions of sounds. So this instrument can plug directly into a guitar rack. So you get any number of sounds, and the synthesized tone that it creates can be changed. It's programmable using an open source software called Pure Data, which is similar to Max MSP, if any of you have heard of that. So you can program it by logging in over Wi-Fi and opening up the interface and programming it however you want. Any more questions? All right. Well, thank you for listening. Oh, yes? What am I creating at the moment? So what I'm trying to create now is a version of this or something like that that does not need an amplifier to work. So I've been doing a lot of power amplifier circuitry using Class D digital amplifiers to keep it lightweight, and then integrating in a horn that is about 1 meter long, but then it's curled up and it's made out of wood. driver, and the horn driver I've got is designed to use in shipping horns. So it's rather loud. As in ships on the ocean, when they come in through the heads and they go, one of those. I'm using batteries from electric cigarettes because they're very high power, and I'm trying to not think about the fact that they explode. Yeah, and the whole idea is to get as much volume in a small portable instrument as possible.
For people who are interested in learning a brass instrument, perhaps have like a similar difficulty with the way that you use your mouth to play it, do you see an electric trumpet as being a viable option in the future? People pick it up and start learning music?
So I work as a music teacher full time. It's what I do for money, and I'm constantly having students who are disengaging because they can't play the instrument. It's the hardest instrument known to man, short of maybe nose flute or bassoon or something. It's a very, very hard instrument, the trumpet. And so I have a lot of students who just can't do it, you know, and they persist for years and years and years, but they just will never be able to do it. And there's no real way to teach the instrument. I mean, there are ways, but there's no science of how the instrument works, and it can be very hard to teach when a student just isn't doing the right thing with their mouth, because you can't tell them how to move their mouth the right way. So I think as an educational tool, it could be quite good, and I've brought it to school a few times and played it for my kids, and they generally love it. So yeah, I would like to explore that, using it in education, definitely.
And as a follow-up to that question, Jerry, do you think also that because of the fact that it's now electronic and you have the ability to attach different inputs to it, do you think from an accessibility point of view it would be easier for people to be able to pick up an instrument using that as opposed to traditional?
Yeah, I think accessibility will be much more accessible than a real trumpet. I use the analogy of an electric guitar compared to an acoustic guitar. Electric guitars are easier to play, much easier to play. And also you have access to playing in a bunch of contexts where an acoustic guitar would not work in rock or in pop, in loud concert settings. For a very long time, like acoustic trumpet is very, very limited in your endurance. Whereas with this, it's not the case. I've spent 3, 4, 5 hours busking on that instrument on Brunswick Street, you know, and you can just keep on going. It's amazing.
Yeah,
No joy. Yeah.
Do you think that this is a good substitute for a trumpet? Like, does it sound like a trumpet?
Is it a substitute for a trumpet?
Because, so for example, I reuse an analogy for electric guitar, which sounds like an acoustic guitar. At least you can use that on stage, for example.
It doesn't sound anything like a trumpet.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a substitute for a trumpet sound, but I think it's a substitute instrument for a trumpet player. Yeah, in the same way that an electric guitar, you would play it in a completely different musical context than you would an acoustic guitar. So